Welcome everybody to the board meeting on November 3rd, 2025. And welcome to those who are at home watching or on the internet. We have a full agenda tonight. We will actually get through it in a very timely sort of way. I'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, call to order. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Has everybody had a chance to review them? And you see, or wish to make any adjustments to the agenda?
I have one. Under new business, under A, I will be presenting Mr. Saunders to talk here tonight. And I do have a verbal report Mr. Saunders wanted me to share with everyone under the board.
Any other adjustments? All right, the date and time of our next meeting will be November 17th at 6 p.m. Let's take a look at, I hope that people have reviewed the previous two sets of minutes. And if you need a minute or two to please review those now, do so, and then we will move for approval. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for October 20th?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right. Thank you very much.
Just two sets.
Yes.
20th and okay.
And the minutes for October 27th, I have a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the November 27th minutes.
Thank you.
October 27th.
I'll second.
Oh,
Appreciate
one
it.
of those.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Do we have any, and this excludes I see that the ABC is here, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. But excluding the ABC, do we have anybody from the public that wishes to make any comments tonight or ask clarifications? John?
John Chubloff on the Ipswich. I'm going to speak as a member of the ABC. Can we please make sure that ABC members are listed by name in the attendance roll so we don't have any public meeting law violations?
Absolutely.
We are in a greater than a quorum.
Okay, absolutely. All right, given that there are no public comments, no one here from the public at this point of the meeting, should we have people walk in who wish to participate, we will stop the agenda at that point to entertain their questions or feedback to the board. All right, moving on to board chair remarks. I have a few that I want to share. First of all, I want to thank Ellen for filling in while I was gone running the meetings. I did have the pleasure of watching remotely, and you did a very good job. So thank you very much for doing that. Secondly, I want to again thank the ABC. I know the ABC has been diligently working on their task, and I appreciate you all taking the time to be here tonight to either pose questions or ask for clarification or give us feedback. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. And then the other remark is just a reminder for the board that in January, we will be doing the midterm superintendent evaluation. So I bring this to your attention so you'll begin to think about things and jot down notes and whatever that you would like to address when that time comes. All right, moving on. We have reports to the board, and starting with Superintendent Dr. Pogo.
Mine's going to be very short this week. We just met last week. So again, a quick recap. We are in the middle of budget season, so there's a lot of conversations that we're having around the budget at building level, department level, and at the SAU level. There's some legislation that we're watching. I don't have anything to report out on just yet. I don't want to be alarmist, but I'll be reporting out on some legislative updates and some goings on that we do want to be watching in the next couple months.
Any other comments from the superintendent?
Nope.
All right. I want to just backtrack. There was one other remark that I wanted to make as chair. And the board had a working session last spring to talk about some goals that the board wanted to pursue or felt that we should try to accomplish this year. And one of them was increase the engagement of residents in the community to come out and vote during election time. And so I'm just asking tonight for the board to be thinking about that so that in the upcoming meetings, we can have some discussion on that topic. All right. Ms. Gray, would you like to give your report?
Sure, just a couple of things from the curriculum office. The seed grant that we had applied for energy improvements, specifically the 2 rooftop units at Messinic Regional High School, was not awarded. They were looking for a few more documents than we provided, so we didn't receive that grant. It's highly competitive. There were 2 across the state that were to be awarded, so they're very, very strict about the protocols and pieces that go into that. So unfortunately, we will have to look at other opportunities. We are still awaiting word from the federal COPS grant for school violence prevention. We had been promised October 1st, that came and went. Then a little bit after, I had called them and said, when is that? They said by the 15th, that came and went. I left a message with them. I believe those folks are furloughed because no one has returned my calls or my emails. So we're still awaiting that grant. Our state reporting, which is due around October 1st, is complete. We have one report that we need to make a very quick adjustment to, but otherwise, all of that data is submitted to the state. That eventually leads to adequacy funding. And then finally, we just had a really productive data coach meeting in the other room this evening. And from my perspective, that went really well. Folks were very engaged in the process. We've got Branching Minds is a really fantastic tool that Highbridge has brought to us through the CSI grant, and it is really illuminating our data in a lot of ways. So we're going to be able to engage with data more comprehensively and more frequently. So looking forward to that work going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McBee, would you like to give your report?
Sure. So before I get started on my recap of the budget, since we met last week, the Student Services and Special Education Department has been busy with the Indicator 13 and PAGS audit for across the district, Highbridge, Boynton, and Messinic. We are currently going through the indicator 13, which was due last Friday, and the PAGS audit is due next week. Everything's looking great there. To recap on the additions to the budget for the special education and student services budget for next school year, it is a 7.8% increase. The major addition to my budget is the re-addition and the reintroduction of the life skills classroom at Messinic Regional High School. This classroom specializes in, it's a specialized instruction program designed for students who require instruction past a regular typical academic curriculum, where the focus is instead on building skills that promote independence, employability, community participation, and self-advocacy skills.
Thank you very much. Any questions of any of the reports thus far? All right. Mr. Pickering.
Good evening, everybody. Since our last academic school board meeting, Messinic Regional High School has continued to advance its professional learning, focus on inquiry-based instruction and student-centered instruction. On October 10th, we welcomed Dr. John Spencer to the high school and had a very engaging professional development seminar where he focused on presenting a lot of the theoretical background on curiosity and its impact on learning, as well as practical instructional strategies to implement in the classroom. As part of the presentation and his work with us, all of our staff members received a copy of his most recent book, and we're planning to use that book to inform our ongoing professional development at the school. On October 20th through the 22nd, we engaged in 3 days of professional development at Messinic Regional High School with the New Hampshire Learning Initiative, where our discipline teachers were able to work on their competency statement articulations, and we're going to be continuing with that work throughout the year. Very good workshops, well received from our teachers, and obviously, we closed out the first quarter, so today marks the beginning of the second quarter. All of our fall athletic teams have wrapped up their seasons, a very successful time for Messinic athletics and the student body in general. We had a really high percentage of students connected to a sport in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, our soccer team had a strong year of growth. Our volleyball team made a nice push into the playoffs. Our field hockey team was in the championship game this past weekend. We had several cross-country runners qualify for the Meet of Champions, and then one runner is going on to the New Englands. Golf, a very successful team state championship, as well as a few individual golfers finished first and second in the individual meets. At the building level, as well with clubs, we have a really strong club presence. We've got a science club up and running now, in addition to a vast number of music ensembles, as well as chess club, robotics, and just a lot of fun things going on there to engage students as well. A lot of highlights in the classroom, project-based learning taking place in mathematics, specifically Miss Mano's class. She delivered a nice lesson and part of a unit where students created their own multi-step equation problems and worked in pairs to work through the process of sequencing and solution. Mrs. Peterson's world history class did an amazing model simulation where students took on the personas of nation states, and they were doing all this diplomacy work set in the World War I era. As well as Mrs. Howard's journalism course. They just published their first, the Viking Press, I believe I think it's called the Viking Times, school-based newspaper. Really fun work going on there. Students interviewing staff, taking on the roles of editors and writing and refining. So a lot of fun stuff going on there. This week we have NHS inductions on the 6th at 5:30. On the 7th, we've got a Veterans Day breakfast at the school. Next week, we'll have fall sports awards, followed by a winter sports parent meeting on the 12th. On the 14th of November, we're going to sponsor a field trip to the Milford CTE. And then on the 17th, winter sports practices officially begun. It's kind of just a little rundown.
NHS, right?
Yeah,
Is
on
Thursday.
the 6th. Yep. NHS inductions at 5:30.
Greg, any word on how the blood drive went today?
It was good. They were running. They were there longer than they thought they would be. I think they were a little off schedule, but it went. I don't have numbers, but based on what I saw, people coming in, students and staff as well, it was a relative success, I think.
Okay, Greg, I have a question about the Viking Times. Is that available for us to read? Is it on the website or something?
So it's gonna be linked in our newsletter.
Okay.
So we're putting out the newsletter on Wednesday.
Okay, great.
Yep. So we'll be sending that out.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like high school's been busy.
Certainly has. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Go ahead, Mr. Fondis.
This past week, we had a Red Ribbon Week celebrating, the anti-drug theme. Each day had a theme to be drug-free. It's a way for schools in the community to unite, take visible stand against drugs. The theme this year was Life is a Puzzle, Solve It, Drug-Free. Each advisory group decorated a giant puzzle piece. The pieces were put together and displayed in the school. We also have a Veterans Day breakfast but we're holding ours on the 6th. And it's our fourth annual Veterans Day breakfast, thanking the veterans for their service. The band and the chorus will be performing. Typically, they do 2 songs each. And I thank the Boynton PTSO for funding that breakfast. And last is the field hockey team had their championship on Saturday. This past week, they won 8-0 over South Meadow and had an undefeated season of 14-0 record. So,
Very good. When will you be, I'm curious, when will you be organizing for the DC trip?
can you clarify that?
Is there going to be another trip to DC this year?
Yes.
Okay.
It was already approved. The trip was approved and we're waiting parental permission, correct?
Yeah, we only have 26 families signed up as of the moment. The goal is 45 and registration closes on the 17th of November.
A little bird told me that at one time, historically, board members were allowed to be chaperones.
I've only been in the district 9 years, so I don't know that history.
Is there a policy or anything, any kind of prohibition?
Not to my knowledge.
Making him nervous.
Not to my knowledge. We have our chaperones set, so we have our school nurse also.
You already have it set.
Yep.
There's no seats left, Mr. Chair.
Then I will talk to you about next year. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Dr. Poby, you want to give Mr. Saunders' report?
I have Mr. Saunders' report, and he's really just reporting out on the amazing things that are happening at Highbridge. On October 22nd, the first grade held their exhibition of learning that was focused on community helpers. I also have a first grader. So I was a little, originally a little confused because we were like, oh, community helpers. And I had my definition of what a community helper was. And then when he told me he was a fisherman, I was like, oh, okay. Okay. We believe you. So anyways, it was really great because really what a community helper was anybody that does something to help their community. And so kids were able to pick different community helpers, learn about them. Some were able to interview people in the community that were the community helpers that they wanted to be. They did research, they drew pictures, and then they had them on boards and invited the community and family members to come in. They dressed up. It was precious. Students and staff did a great job with that. On the 24th of October, the PTA ran the first ever trunk or treat, and it was a humongous hit. There were over 35 cars, staff, and parents, and there were hundreds of kids, and it was very well attended. My understanding is they did not anticipate it being that much of a hit. So again, kudos to the PTA for their thoughtfulness, their time, their dedication. They were out there right after school setting up, aligning everything. So again, that was a great event. On the 31st, they had their Halloween parade, which for those of you, this is a longstanding tradition, and it was just as cute as it was in every single year. A little cooler than it was last year and a little windier, but the kids were great, staff were great. The kids were excited to get back in and go to their Halloween parties because they did not want to come home with their parents. So again, very, very fun things happening right now at Highbridge.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to unfinished business. Ms. McBee, I understand you're going to offer some clarification on life skills.
Absolutely. So under the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and New Hampshire Department of Education regulations at 1100, public school districts are required to provide support for individuals past the grade of grade 12 up until the individual turns 22. And again, a life skills classroom is a specialized and structured program designed for students who require instruction beyond the traditional academic instruction. So the instruction could include functional academics, so time management, money management, reading for daily life, personal care, self-management, and hygiene skills, communication and social skills, community-based learning experiences, and independent living skills. So this includes cooking, cleaning, budgeting, etc. One of the reasons why I think it is fruitful for the school district to have this life skills program back up and running here at Messinic is that statewide averages to educate students with an IEP past the 12th grade is between $22,000 and $33,000 per student just for tuition. We are talking about also individuals that may have occupational therapy skills, maybe support with the BCBA, physical therapy skills, case management skills, speech services, and or maybe even need a paraprofessional. All of that is an additional $55 to $75 an hour on top of the tuition per student.
And transportation.
And transportation. How could I forget to talk about transportation? So transportation could be super expensive, obviously. Daily, weekly, we're talking about upwards to around $5,000.
It depends.
Every agency is different. One of my hopes is to get these individuals out in the community, to get these community skills outside of the classroom setting, the life skills classroom setting, is to also have that van, the community van, where students have the ability to go out and get the skills that they need for the life force, for job skills, et cetera, et cetera. Our hope is that these individuals past the age of 22, we get them ready for real life and have a job themselves, able to make money themselves.
I think what's really important when we look at clarifying what this life skills program, we are required to either have a life skills program or to provide these students with the program, one way or the other. So what we're talking about is which is more beneficial, is to have a program in-house that allows us to access our own staff, our own resources, and have students who have life skills goals already in their IEPs access parts of that program as well. Or are we looking at tuitioning students out? And at this point, it's our recommendation that we keep the program, that we build back the program here based on the students that we currently have and the students that we see coming up through the ranks, that we're going to be needing a life skills program. So again, I think one of the things that was a little confusing last week is why exactly we're bringing forward a life skills program. It's required. We have to do something for these students 18 to 22. Mm-hmm. So one way or the other, we're doing it. And we've looked at the cost, and we believe it's going to be in our best interest fiscally to have the program here.
And you may have said this, Ms. McBee, how many students do you anticipate currently that would have the need for the life skills program?
I don't feel comfortable answering that because it's very identifiable information.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
sorry.
But I will say, throughout the next few years, we will certainly have a full classroom.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Would anyone like, 2021, 22 be able to come back into the life skills program, or is it just for those leaving now and then going in?
It's for students, they have to meet certain criteria,
Yeah.
right? So we haven't had students who've met that criteria for a series of years. 10 years ago, we had a very large life skills program. It was very robust at Messinic because we had that population matriculated. So we had a period of time where we didn't have students who needed those services. But we're coming back on that. And again, looking down the road, we see students, if they remain in our district, that are going to also need to access that.
Any other questions or comments?
Did I answer your question?
You did. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Pogo, you're going to give some clarification on open enrollment?
I'm going to give as much as I can. But yes, so after last board meeting, one of the things that Rachel had discussed was that we put a line in the budget for $100,000 relative to open enrollment expenses. And I got a few conversations and emails asking, but we are not an open enrollment school. That is correct. We are not an open enrollment school, meaning we are not accepting students into our district. There are not many open enrollment schools right now, and there are not any in our area. So it does not mean, however, that a student could not choose, one of our students could not choose to go to another district that is an open enrollment. We would then be on the hook for paying for that. So which is why, even though we're not an open enrollment school, we still need to put the line item, and the line item is mandated. And we're looking at about $100,000, figuring potentially 20 to 25,000. Again, we're not 100% sure what this looks like, but it's 80% of the sending. I don't know how you'd call it. It'd be their districts.
Cost.
The minimum would be 85%. So they set the floor, they did not set the ceiling.
And when you say 100,000, that is to cover 5 students approximately.
It may. Maybe 4.
Any questions or comments about that?
Yeah, just so it sounds like because this is a new thing for every school in New Hampshire, we're just putting a budget in, which is a possible expense, but it's less of it's not predictable at all this year.
It's not predictable, but at this moment, I would consider us low risk because there are no schools in our immediate area that are open enrollment. If there were other schools in our area that were to decide to go open enrollment, this could be a completely different conversation. We could be high risk because maybe other schools are providing sports that we don't have, programming that we don't have. So I think right now $100,000 is appropriate. That could change. I have a meeting with a few superintendents in the next couple weeks to just kind of feel out where everybody is with this. I think everyone's a little nervous with it.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Dr. Pogo, would you like to, well, let me ask this. We're looking at item C on the agenda under unfinished business. Has the board given any thought to the budget as it was presented on the 27th and the numbers that you've seen? Do you have any clarifications you would like to ask for, any questions or any recommendations thus far?
Most of my questions kind of revolved around the life skills program that I think was further clarified by Ms. McBee's presentation. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment that I think that the proactive nature of the strategic work, like looking ahead, like the possible open enrollment idea, it's extremely professional. It's very well done. very responsible in terms of looking at the dollar, and making sure that we're responsible with what the taxpayers trust us with, right? Make good use of the dollar. One thing stood out, just a comment, but it's a manifestation of response to the community, the electric budget, which means that there's been a long time desire for the community to use the buildings in addition to academics, arts, and athletics. And so that's a manifestation of success. But it reflects a lot of what I saw in the budget as very thoughtful and very student positive, teacher positive, and then community also. So I commend you guys for the work you've done.
And my question was, or clarification was, and I had emailed you, Brianna, about the life skills program, and you did a great job explaining that tonight. When we look at this life skills program, is there a possibility down the road of students tuitioning into our program? Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the hope of the program. Obviously, I'd love to get it kickstarted with some students here at Messinic, and then absolutely, that is it's additional revenue that can certainly come to the district.
Okay.
It's also something that's needed in our region. You know, in our region, we don't have a ton of, not every school has the population to warrant that. So I think that it's something that is appealing when people are looking to move, you know, what districts do have these types of things. So that's something, again, I think it could be a huge draw.
Okay.
A few comments that I would like to make. I want to apologize. I don't have specific clarifications or questions because I had not had a chance to really drill down on the budget, the draft one, as I would have liked. But overall, the awareness that we have just come out of 2 default budgets and the increases that we're seeing in the budget that have come forward in draft 1 are largely a result of trying to catch up from 2 years of not having the approval for the expenses that the district was feeling was needed. And so that has kind of artificially inflated the budget this time a little bit higher than had we been in a full budget each of the past 2 years. And I'm very mindful of that. And I say that just so that everyone else is thinking about that. But we have 2 more drafts to go through before we receive a final draft. And I want to first say that I did listen to the presentations on the 27th. And I came away feeling very impressed with how tight I felt the budgets were, how the justifications for what you were spending money on was legitimate and was there and very easily and well presented. And I commend all of you for the job you have done on the first draft. And I just want to put that out there. In the same token, not knowing what we will be facing, particularly when we get in front of the voters, I just want to ask you to continue, since we're doing 2 more drafts at least, to continue reviewing your budget, looking at where you think something could be changed if possible. I'm not asking you to make cuts, but I'm asking you to think more, what would happen if we ended up with a default budget? What would your priorities be that are the absolutes? And so be mindful about that. And I've found in my history of doing budgets that the first couple of times I go through it, it seems very clear to me. And then the 3rd or 4th time I go, and I start thinking about something I didn't really think about before. So please take that time. But you all did a very, very terrific job. I was very impressed. Thank you very much. Yes.
One of the things that we've talked about as a group is the challenge of bringing forward a budget after 2 defaults. And that right now we're at a 7.88 increase, and that's not including any warrant articles we bring for to put into the capital reserve, which I would argue we still need to do. So that 7.88% could go up. Never mind we have put, Rachel's put together for the healthcare, an average of what the increase could be. We put in a 16% increase in healthcare premiums. It could be as much as 35. So the increase in just under $500,000 that we've put into this budget could be a full million by the time we're done. And we're supposed to get that information in the next week, by early next week. So in light of that, one of the things that I am asking everybody to do is take a look at what they can cut without it impacting, with the least impact on students. A default looks completely different. And I guess I just want to be clear. I think that, again, I know how I would feel not knowing anything about our budget and going, it's up 7.8%. Like, I'd have questions, right? So I want to do as much as we can here to bring forward a budget that gets passed by our voters. So we're hoping to get that number down. We do have some things going against us here. So we have asked department heads to take a look, just like Mr. Gluck said, at areas that they could potentially cut from. And in the back of all of our minds is a default. Unfortunately, that's the reality that some of us have lived in the past couple years. And so we are looking at what a default could mean as well. But again, 7.8% is hard. And I think I think everybody at this table is trying to be cognizant of the fiscal mindset of the community, the state, the nation right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Liz, I have a question, and excuse my ignorance if it's a dumb question, but the 7.8% is over the current budget we're working on, correct? The 7.8 increase, 7.8% increase.
It's over the default.
Over the default, and the teacher contract was passed last year. So now we have to include that. So it's not necessarily what we, taking that out of the picture. It's not that everything else is up 7.8%. We had to put in the teacher contract increase that was voted on by the voters last year. So that's part of what we're looking at for an increase.
If you looked at the budget sheet, again, remember that my math wasn't mathing earlier. So again, the capital reserve money is not included yet. We have not determined what we're putting into capital reserve. But at this moment, out of the 1.75 million extra that this budget is, 1.5 of that is salaries and benefits, which contractually we have to offer. Right. So I think if we look at it in that light, it feels a lot more reasonable. Again, from an outside perspective, someone looking in, I don't know how they would look at that, or if they're going to look at how we break it down. We put out this information, I did a podcast, we have a newsletter piece going out, like we're going to be pushing all this information out. I don't know how many people look at it. I don't know how many people care what our budget is made up of, how we do it, what our process is. I feel good about it. Mm-hmm. I feel good about it as an employee and as a taxpayer. And I know that there are people in our community who work in jobs that are similar, that have contractual obligations, that understand that some of these things are not in our control.
Right. And it's what the voters voted on last year.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments so far? All right. At this point, we'd like to hear from the Advisory Budget Committee, and taking into account the request that Mr. Shamleffel made, I would like to ask if we could start by just asking each of you to please introduce yourself as members of the ABC. And so if we could start with you, Carolyn.
Carolyn Cormier from Ipswich.
I'm John Shamleffel from New Ipswich. Jonathan Boulay from Greenville.
Amanda McKinnon from New Ipswich.
Yeah. Could I ask you to do that one more time, since it was a great rehearsal? Could I ask you to please come up and introduce yourselves to the mic? I think you all got it correct the first time. Thank you.
John Shumwaffle, New Ipswich. Greenbelt.
Amanda McKinnon, New Ipswich. Julie Lampin in New Ipswich. I'm an alternate.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, thank you, everybody. I turn it over to the ABC to.
Thank you. So ABC has, so first of all, Mr. Mahoney can't be here tonight. He does have some questions, and I encourage him to get in touch with Craig directly about those. So we have met as a group, and we've gone over one version of the budget so far. And each of us has our own sort of individual questions from that, and there are minutes from that meeting we just haven't approved. I will share from that meeting that we did have a discussion of one item that especially those who are involved in primary and secondary education felt was important, which was not to unnecessarily increase class sizes. And our colleagues on the ABC who have that experience pointed that out. And that should not necessarily be a default way of budget savings by making class sizes up to some legislative or other maximum that there are value in class sizes. And then I'll let you know that after today, whenever changes may come, we have a meeting that's scheduled and noticed for November 12th. Talk more about whatever comes out of tonight or another draft of budget or any additional questions we might have.
All right.
So you all want me to go. So my questions on the budget are actually, I have two questions, and then primarily I have only comments on how the budget is presented and some of the justifications that are in the budget. So the one thing I would encourage the board to do, if it doesn't already, is to consider consulting with peer boards, experts, and council to make sure that the default budget is truly inclusive of all of the expenses that has to be there, especially because we're bringing on expenses for things like life skills, quite likely, which are legislatively mandated. So we want to make sure that the default budget is as accurate as possible, both for budgeting purposes, but also for taxpayer awareness, so they know what has to be in there. So the second comment, again, comes for me in looking over the budget and to ask, my understanding is that all of the teacher positions this year have been filled.
Not at this point.
Classroom teachers?
Classroom teachers, yes.
So in terms of classroom teachers, if it was possible this year to fill all the positions, and it's a possibility in the future that there's a good enough applicant pool to fill all the positions, I would ask to encourage the board to consider whether or not for savings an early or phased retirement program would be appropriate for senior teachers. So I've had experience in implementing those in higher education, both early and also phased. So that was just one thing. So questions or recommendations on the budget. You know, we've all talked today about the 7.88 or whatever percentage that the current draft has as an increase. And I think it would be useful in explaining and clarifying to the taxpayers at whatever point we get to in the final budget, how much of the overall budget and the increase is due to existing or new unfunded mandates that are really outside of the district's controls. At the same point, you know, we did hear a really great explanation about why we have life skills. I think it would be useful to have that because that is a very big in student services, which I'm looking at expense, to sort of not justify, but explain the difference in cost between local and what I'll call outsourcing those services for students. So, because, typically last year when we looked at student services budget, especially special education, it was more efficient to do it locally than to perhaps provide some of those services to students by having them go to other districts or other schools. So a few other questions. In one of the support services budgets, there is a line increase, and it's a small dollar amount, but it's a 100% increase for CPI training. I think it would be useful to explain to folks in the justification what that's for and whether it's legislatively or contractually mandated. Because I think folks look a lot at that and say, well, what's that? For example, does it count towards teacher PD hours? I don't know. Is it required, by legislation, or is it in a contract with the teachers that we're going to provide them more? I don't even know if it's for staff either. I don't know. So another thing, legal fees, which is often, and I'm looking at specifically the line that was under student services. It's been rebudgeted and moved over for the upcoming fiscal year budget. I think it would be useful for the taxpayers to be able to see sort of what the trend is there from, say, 24 up, not just a year or two. And it's not to say that that's a bad expense. That's an important expense to protect both the district, but also the rights of the students and the families. So I think that would be good. And then the last thing was under student services, there are a couple of lines of services related to audiology. And I think this is a really good and important thing. The justification is well-meaning in saying that one student. But I think the first thing is we don't know that it's going to be one student. It could be other students. But also, even though the justification doesn't have personally identifiable information, when you give low numbers of students, it makes the students more identifiable.
Yep.
And I think it would be just better to say to provide those services to students in the district, because I also believe that's probably mandated by law to provide that. And maybe we could say that without inadvertently leading to the identification of those students. We don't want, I don't know, nobody wants that. So those are just my question or my recommendations on the budget. A couple of questions.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Any other recommendations or comments from other members of the group?
Carolyn pointed at me, so.
I think John covered a lot of what we talked about in our meetings. I think just if anyone's not aware of our process, we had great, we called them budget buddies. What was it? Buddy budgets, budget buddies, where we broke up and met individually with the heads of each department and looked over their budget and was able to ask more, kind of dig down at each line. And a lot of my questions were answered there. And I really appreciate the extra time that took. I think our plan as a committee is just for us to be liaison to the community as far as like advocates for the budget or a point person that people know in the community, have a relationship with, and are able to come with their questions. Ideally, would give people a point of contact that, might feel like a little bit more approachable or reachable potentially than a member of the board possibly. So yeah, thank you for.
Carolyn, with that comment, I'm curious, have any of you experienced members of the community reaching out to you or having an informal discussion with you based on your being on the ABC and asking you questions about the budget?
Not yet, it's too early.
Too early for some of you. John, you?
Only elected officials.
I guess one of my questions is, so we have a newsletter that we're prepping to go out on Wednesday. Would it be appropriate for me to include your Messinic emails and tell people that they're welcome to reach out to the ABC? We haven't done that before. So I don't want to put you in an odd situation rather than informally, right? People, in the grocery store asking you about it. But I can do that if that's something that you're all comfortable with.
I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of the questions I'm getting are people that just aren't aware of the process, that sort of thing. It's like, I can just point them to the spot to find the information. Like, sure. Oh, I never knew, that kind of thing. So I think that would be helpful.
All right, well, with that being said, again, I want to thank all of you for the time that you have put in. And
Does anybody else have anything?
I was here last week, so my only comments was, I'm happy you guys mentioned what open enrollment expenses were. So I was a little confused about that. So having you guys discuss that today, that was very helpful. And when they were talking about, when you guys were talking about the increase for 7.8% and talking about how to present that to the community, I agree with John. I wrote down my notes, like a pie chart of what that 7.8% is and what we have to cover. I think that would be quite helpful to the community. My only concerns with last week was this is my second year for ABC. The high school budget just seemed like extra lean. I did read the lines and I saw where things made sense. It just was, my concern was, is that already, what will happen when it's a default budget? What else will be taken away from the already lean high school budget? So that was just a thought I had. I'm not an expert at it, but it was just an idea. So, and that's all I got.
that's good. Thank you, Amanda. You know, my experience has been that particularly alternates on a committee usually have a lot to say. And so, oh, there you are. Do you have, is there anything you would like to give input to tonight?
I really don't. You picked a good night. It was a Mimi day today, so.
All right, John, do you have anything you would like to add?
I mean, not really. It's going over. It's pretty lean, pretty basic budget. That 7% is almost just the inflation from being on a default budget for the last 3 years?
2 years. Yeah.
Right. It's paying the piper. It's what's due. You're not adding a bunch of extra stuff.
Yeah.
The community needs to support this. Figure it out.
All right. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you for all being here. I have a question that I want to, in the context of what you're all talking about with regards to default budgets. Dr. Pogo, can you share with us kind of at maybe a 50,000 foot level, if we were to enter another default budget this coming year, what some of the implications could be?
So how the default is created, and Rachel can probably speak to this a little bit better than I, is that we take all of the contracted expenses that we have and they're carried over into the next year. So our default budget is going to include whatever the salaries and benefits, the contracted pieces are. It would not include the piece about the custodians, the secretarial staff, the administrators. It wouldn't include their COLAs. That's something that they don't sign a CBA. We don't have a union there. The other things, again, unfortunately, it's fringe. It's the fringe things at schools. It's oftentimes, it's the student-facing supplies, the teacher-facing supplies that we don't have licenses for. It's the athletics. It's the clubs, and it's looking again at staff. Again, I could appreciate the small class sizes. It's a value that our community has, the school board set in its policy. But that would be something we'd have to take another look at in a default. And unfortunately, and maybe it's not unfortunately, we've had a very lean budget year over year over year, in my opinion. And with the default last year, we made cuts where we felt we could make cuts. They were not easy cuts, and it has not been without its repercussions. But we were able to make them largely with the focus of not being student facing. We're at a point though where the cuts will be student facing, which again is a lot of reasons why kids come to school. They come to school for the fun stuff, to see their friends, to play the games, to go to the dances, so those are some concerns that I have about another default. it could look at increased class sizes, because we may have to look at staffing. Because at some point we still have to pay for certain things, and we're not going to be able to hit those numbers that we need to hit with the default, which we have not calculated yet. But we can't get that by cutting pencils. We can't get that by cutting a few resources. It's people. So that is something that, again, when we start looking at the default, that we'll have to keep in the back of our minds. So thank you. Good question, Mitch.
One other thing, John, when you and I were talking a little bit earlier, you had mentioned that you'd received some information, I believe, budgetary information on Thursday. Is that correct? And you felt like that wasn't giving you sufficient time to process the information?
I just looked at when the budget, last version of the budget appeared in the share drive, and it was like the Thursday before the last school board meeting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Since I don't work for the district, I don't check my missing email or pings or things like that every day.
Yeah.
So
Just put out a request. I know that everybody's busy and a lot of work goes into documents and calculations before it gets put out. But the sooner that the ABC can get whatever information we would like them to have, the easier it will be for them to be able to do their work as well.
And I'm not trying to come across as defensive when I say this by any means, but we're getting this information out as fast as we can. We want it to be accurate. So we're doing, again, if it's late, we apologize. We knew that when we had draft one, there had already been some adjustments that we made like after the fact. It's a living process. So as much as like we will have a draft 2, there could be changes that we already will have on the 17th based on what we put in the folder. So again, we're doing our best to be as transparent and as timely as possible. And if you want, we can email the ABC when everything gets into the folder, if that's helpful, to just say, all the stuff's ready, it's in. That might be helpful.
Your next meeting is when?
well, our next meeting is the 12th. But we would have to, and we may do this by email, decide that if we don't have another version of the budget, whether or not we should meet on that day or postpone it until we have another version of the budget. That would be for the group to talk about.
Okay.
Because that's really when we can have our greatest discussions, is by looking at changes.
John, that's helpful to know. So if I'll sit with Rachel tomorrow and Wednesday, and we can figure out whether or not we'll have it by the 12th, and we'll try to let you know early. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. And of course, you're all invited to come on the 17th if that fits with your calendars. And you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting. I know that it's been titillating so far. But we're going to move on to the next topic. I believe, Mr. Summerow, you wanted to talk a little bit about the homework conversation that you had with the community?
Yes. So the policy committee is working on policy IKB, which is the homework policy. And this is one that the community, the teachers, and anybody who's interested can provide input and feedback. It's a gesture out to the community that the policy committee is willing to listen to people, get community input. And the debut was not very well attended. We did not maybe expect that. We did have one very thoughtful teacher that gave us some language and accessibility feedback, which we're going to try to adopt in upcoming drafts. And I'm marking it as a success, being an optimistic fellow, because it's a gesture. And then a lot of the conversations that we had at the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school were very informative to myself and the policy committee.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to new business. Liz, would you like to speak to the donation from the New Ipswich Congregational Church in the amount of $500?
Yes, so the New Ipswich Congregational Church, NICC, has donated $500 to Highbridge. That money, the plan is for it to be dispersed amongst the different student activity accounts to offset different student activities throughout the year. So I would ask the board to accept this donation.
This is from the Children's Fair, I presume?
Yes.
Okay. All right, may I have a motion to accept the $500 donation from the Congregational Church?
I'll make the motion to accept the $500 from the Congregational Church for Highbridge.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, very good. Dr. Pogo, would you like to go on to the donation from Ben's Sugar Shack of a truck with an estimated value of $8,500?
Yes, so we had, Mr. Pickering and I were talking about who's going to present this tonight. So if I miss anything, Mr. Pickering, please let me know. But essentially, Ben Sugar Shack, Ben Fisk, I believe it's Ben Fisk, has donated a diesel truck to the auto program. We do not have many diesel. We don't have I would call it a robust diesel program right now, as we do not have many vehicles that are diesel. So this is a great opportunity to have some of our students, especially in like an Auto 3 class, start learning about the diesel engine. Again, Mr. Wilson the automotive teacher is ecstatic about this and would very much like the board to accept this donation. Mr. Pickering, did I forget anything?
This is a vehicle that in this part of the country is on the road pretty heavily. So it's relevant to the students and represents, real world learning for them.
So I asked the board to accept the donation of the truck that's estimated to be $8,500.
You said we don't have any diesel vehicles that we've had before. Will this require any additional expense that's needed in order to learn on the vehicle? Any, things that they're going to need to, bring in to?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
No.
All right, may I have a motion to accept the diesel vehicle at a valuation of $8,500 for the high school?
I'll make the motion to accept the 2006 Ford F-350 from Ben Sugar Shack with a value of $8,500.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. And then
Me again.
you again.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right, go for it.
All right, so I have, or in front of you in your folder, you have a professional development request for a staff member to go to a conference out of state. The staff member is able to get flights for free, and it's estimated to be about $1,200. We are trying to get that into Title II grants. We believe this would be a beneficial activity for her to go to. So I'm looking for approval it's $1,250. Approval for that.
All right.
I can answer questions if
Are there any questions?
it's in San Antonio.
What time of year?
Okay, December,
It's a good time to go.
which is right up her alley.
So this cost includes the hotel and the course and the,
Doesn't include airfare, yep.
Any chaperones needed?
None, nope.
Okay.
you can ask
Fully
her-
capable, fully capable.
May I have a motion to accept the approval for the $1,250 for the professional development?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the professional development of approximately $1,250.
Thank you, Ms. Solmonson. This administrator had said to me, I'm going to pay for it out of my pocket if I don't. She felt that strongly about it. So again, I'm sure she'll appreciate this.
And it's
And
great that she gets to fly free.
I mean,
Yes,
that sounds a good perk. Yeah.
So I make that motion.
All right, may I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, moving on to policies. Tim, did you want to talk about the policies that are on the slate?
So this is a formality. This is a second read for policies that the policy committee supports. They've been revised and they're available for additional review.
Yeah, they're all online. Has everyone had a chance to at least review the policies? Any questions or comments about any of the policies? All right, let's have a motion to approve the entire slate of policies.
I'll make a motion to approve the slate of policies as presented.
May I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you to the policy committee for addressing these issues. Now we're moving on to the agenda item where if you have input as to what you would like on the next agenda, whether you're present or not, are there any ideas that somebody would like to submit for the next agenda?
The next agenda will be draft 2 of the budget.
Right.
At this point, I have asked, or I'm going to tell the administrators, and they're all coming out. Again, we had everyone come out to this meeting. So our hope is that we don't have to do that at the next one. The typical finance, so that'd be Craig and Jesse will just provide a written report. Rachel, unfortunately, still has to be here when we present the budget. So sorry, Rachel.
Okay, if there are no other input for the agenda, we will move on. Personnel report, Dr. Pogo.
We went from not having one to a very, very long one. So thank you. Thank you very much. This is our HEAP. So the program that's at Highbridge, the after school program that runs for, I think, 6 weeks. That's including the HEAP sessions, a lot of our winter sports, and very happily and luckily, some personal assistants and paraprofessionals that are well needed. We had one transfer on that list to a personal assistant position, and there were 2 resignations here as well, and a retirement.
All right. And you're looking for approval for the entire slate?
I'm looking for approval for the slate unless there are questions.
Are there any questions? All right, may I have a motion to approve the entire personnel slate?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it was unanimous for approval. Moving on to final public comments. We have no one here from the public. So we will.
Anybody on the remote?
Anybody? Oh, thank you, Tim. Anybody online have a comment or a question?
Just a reminder, if you're online, you might have to use *6 to unmute. Otherwise, you can unmute from your device, your computer device.
We'll give it a few seconds here to see if somebody has a comment.
There's about a 60-second delay.
Okay. All right, we can wait 60 seconds.
Let's start calling names.
Yeah, this is, yeah. Any comments from people who may be watching from home? All right, with that being said, apparently we have none tonight. I'm not aware of any reason to go into non-public. Is anybody aware of an issue for non-public?
I have nothing.
All right, well, that's pleasant to know. May I have therefore a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, can you give a little enthusiasm in that?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Nice
Thank you,
job.
everyone.
It's so nice having you back.